Today we're looking at energetic horses, or hot horses as they're better known in the equestrian world, and how we get them to calm down and become more rideable. Before you start with over-energetic horses, best to have a look at them physically, either get a vet in or just make sure they're sound, teeth are done, they're well shod, and give yourself the best possible chance in that area. Then look at your tack. Make sure the bit fits well, the bridle, your saddle, all those sorts of things are really important with hot horses because they're generally quite sensitive, and if you have things that are niggling them, then this can drive that behaviour. The next thing to think about is you. So you've got quite a big task with hot horses a lot of the time, and it does take time. Hot horses, it feels like you're on a bit of a treadmill in terms of you teach them something one day and the next day you've moved wrong, you've sneezed, and suddenly they're really over-energetic again and you feel like you're back where you started. So you have to have patience and really persevere with this. And I think the other thing to think about is your facilities. Do you have the facilities to manage a horse like this? If you're in a field that's really slippery and you're trying to deal with an energetic horse, then that can be quite perilous in terms of your horse slipping or doing something like that, and being able to control your horse correctly. So really have a good think about where you are, what you're able to do before you start on this sometimes long journey. Before you start addressing behaviours, it's really important to understand it first. So the first thing is what does a hot horse look like? Well, if you have one, you'll know that they're generally, their head is up, they're quite hard to relax across the top line. Their gait will be quite short, choppy, and quite fast at times. And you'll find it quite hard to get them to stand still. So these are real features of a hot horse, and when you try to correct them, it can actually exacerbate the problem and lead to sort of incoherent behaviour, those sort of behaviours those flight behaviours that we really don't want to see, rearing, running backwards, spinning, all those sorts of things. So you have to understand what it is that you have. Then we need to think about what causes this problem. So for me, some horses are born busy. They're naturally quite sensitive sort of horses and reactive. So they really do require a bit of feel. Now, sometimes hot horses can learn this behaviour, and it can be learnt really simply and unintentionally by a horse getting some sort of input by a human, and them believing that the answer is to get all excited. They might not necessarily run away, but their energy comes right up and they get busy. And if they feel that is an answer to the question that you ask them, then very quickly that becomes a learnt behaviour. The other thing that can sometimes happen with horses is their balance. So if a horse is unsure of its balance, then they can use quicker actions to manage their balance, or that anticipation of being unbalanced. They tend to be much more rapid with their feet. So balance is a really, really important thing with hot and busy horses. The other thing is horses are claustrophobic animals. So if you've got a horse and you've got an energetic horse and you try to hold on to them, and this is where learnt behaviour comes in, they have nowhere to go with that energy, so it starts to get busy on the spot and gives you that sense of being over energetic. Another cause is what I've already talked about, and that is they could be sore in some way, and so we spoke about making sure that was right before we come into training this behaviour. And lastly, some horses are just made that way. That's how they came out of mum, and that's just the way they're going to behave. And so it's really important to have ways to manage this behaviour, and sometimes That's all you're going to do with these over-energetic, busy-minded horses, is manage that behavior and look at the pros of that behavior rather than the cons.